Hey, everybody, and welcome to the FTN Network Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for Thursday, December 21st, 2023, previewing Week 16 in the NFL. I am Aaron Schatz of FTNFantasy.com/DVOA. He is Mike Tanier of TheMessenger.com, and we are here to break down all of the action of Week 16 in the NFL. A reminder that if you watch us live, you can make comments and ask questions over YouTube, and that we are not doing shows on Monday the next 2 weeks because of the holidays. We are taking off for Christmas Day. We are taking off for New Year's Day. So we'll be back Thursday to preview Week 17, and then the following Thursday to preview Week 18, but we will not be doing shows the next 2 Mondays. All right, let's get into the action for Week 16 because we start with the most important game of the week for playoff positioning. Although it doesn't feel like the most important because these are not the best teams in the league. But as far as playoff odds, this is the most important game by far. And that is Thursday night with the 7-7 Saints at the 7-7 Rams. The Saints make the playoffs in 68% of sims when they win this game and only 20% if they lose.
Okay.
The Rams make it in 67% if they win and only 7.5% if they lose.
Wow, 7.5%.
And I will also point out the Rams have the second best offense in the league since Week 10 by DVOA. Right? Brett Rippon had to start against the Packers in Week 9. Mm-hmm. And then Stafford came back in Week 10. And since Stafford came back in Week 10, they are the second best offense in the league over that 6-week period.
And that shouldn't be too surprising because if you look at the raw stats overall, they are 8th in yards. The Rams are 8th in yards per play. This is for the whole season.
Yeah.
10th in third downs conversions, 11th in red zone conversion. So this is an offense that has generally played well and is now on a little bit of a hot streak.
Right. I mean, listen, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Sean McVay getting guys open and Kyren Williams playing very, very well. He was a guy that Playmaker Score really did not like a couple years ago, and Playmaker Score was very, very wrong again on it. Although I will point out the Saints defense is particularly strong against running backs as receivers.
Okay.
And wide receiver one. They're 6th against wide receiver ones, although they allow basically the same amount of yardage per game to wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. So it's not like they're going to shut down Cooper Kupp, but it's not going to be like Washington.
Right. And it's worth pointing out they have not faced the best wide receiver ones throughout their schedule. They're playing all these NFC South wide receiver ones. So,
Well, I adjust for that, but yeah.
Right. You adjust, but like, oh my God, you're adjusting for Adam Thielen as opposed to say,
Adam Thielen is the number 1 receiver for the Carolina Panthers. That is true.
Yeah. But yeah, Saints defense, even with Lattimore out, Adebo has been playing very well. I think the young man's name is Yaldum is the other cornerback that has been coming in.
Yeah, and he's a local kid. He's from around here. I think he's from Worcester.
Neat. He's been playing well. Again, a kind of asterisk because the last 2 opponents we've seen this team against are the Panthers and the Giants. And the Panthers and the Giants are not putting up much of a fight.
Right. This is our chance to just mention that the Giants, I wrote about this today at ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. The Giants are on pace to set the record for adjusted sack rate on offense. Despite having multiple quarterbacks, they all have taken a ton of sacks, especially Daniel Jones. And then even more than that, Tommy DeVito. And they are on pace to break the 2002 Texans record for the highest adjusted sack rate. And they come very close to the Texans when it comes to Z-score, which is like, standard deviations over the mean for sack rate. They would be higher than the 1986 Eagles and slightly below the 2002 Texans. It's kind of remarkable how many sacks they've taken.
That's amazing. And they face the Eagles twice in the next couple of weeks, and the Eagles are out for revenge / blood / redemption, etc. Tommy Cutlets is going to be very literal if we're not careful by the end of this. But that does speak to who the Saints have played and how, their defensive reputation might be a little inflated right now.
Also, their run defense is only 31st in DVOA since Week 10.
The Saints?
Yeah, so Kyren Williams, he's been playing really well, and the Saints' run defense has not been good in the last few weeks. So Kyron Williams could run all over them.
Wow. The problem I have with the Saints is you look at their record, they do not have a good win this year.
It's very NFC Southy.
Yeah. Their best win is the Colts, and that was like a nip and tuck game, and it's the Colts, and they're this 500-ish team. The Saints, right? It is just all like daisy stomping these NFC South teams. The Rams don't have this like amazing record either, but they do have 2 Seahawks victories, of course. They have a Colts victory as well. There's a sense there that they're playing. They're not just taking care of this soft schedule.
Stafford, by the way, 39% DVOA without a blitz, but 0% DVOA with a blitz.
Yeah,
so the Saints do want to blitz him, and the Saints are basically the same either way on defense. There's no difference for them.
Rams have been doing a great job of winning pressure. I think Stafford's pressure rate is 23rd in the NFL. Problem is when he is pressured, and I think part of that's him, he gets rid of the ball quickly, makes a quick decision. When he is pressured, as you pointed out with DVOA, it can get rough quickly.
One other thing that favors the Saints in this game, not that you're going to think about it very much, the Rams have the worst special teams in the league. And in particular, their punting and punt coverage are the worst in the league. And the Saints' punt return value is second in the league behind Baltimore. So when the Rams offense does bog down, which it will, sometimes, and they punt, that looks very good for the Saints and field position. It's a small thing, but it's definitely an issue.
Interesting, and a small thing that can have an impact, especially in these Thursday night games. Yeah, I actually pulled it. Ethan Evans, 39.7 net yards per punt for the Rams.
Yeah, that's not good.
That is not good. That's not good. They're not long kicks, and they've been returned, and there's been a block.
Chris Robbins says the Detroit Lions will get into the playoffs tonight once the Rams lose. Thank you and Merry Christmas. I don't want that to happen because I think, like a lot of other people, I like the idea. First of all, the Rams will be more fun in the playoffs than a lot of the teams that they're competing with. I mean, no disrespect to the fans of the Seahawks or the Vikings or the Packers, but it's Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford. That's fun.
Yeah.
The other is, I think, like a lot of people, I would love to see a 6 versus 3 where Matthew Stafford has to go to Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
And I think in order for that to happen, the Rams do have to win this game.
Okay. I also think the Rams are going to win this game. So that's one of the things. The Lions will have to wait until, I guess, Sunday when they play.
So the line is Rams -4. And the system likes the Saints to cover.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Some places it's 3.5. Some places it's 4.
Yeah,
the other, by the way, the system really likes an over 46 on this.
Oh, gosh. I hate the system on this. This feels like a home team pulls away on field goals edition of Thursday Night Football.
So so that would suggest under and the Rams.
Yeah, and I was looking at personally a Rams money line, and so I don't want to lay 4 or 3.5. Rams money line and under at +195. That's what I'm leaning towards, but I haven't really made my final decisions yet.
Useful title says Rashid Shaheed game, asking as someone who gets punt return yards in fantasy too. Yeah, I mean, this is a good game for punt returns for the Saints, yes.
And also, by the way, Olave,
I don't know how the Rams do against wide receiver 2 or whatever. Olave will be back.
Olave's back.
Olave will be back in this game.
Yes.
If you believe in half splits, by the way, and you want to do a first half bet on a Thursday night, the Rams are much better in the first half and the Saints are much better in the second half. So that suggests going with, and since you like the Rams anyway, Rams -2.5 in the first half.
It is happening. It is happening. I will be betting it as soon as I go off the air.
And Andrew Daly points out Thursday Night Football has gone over in 8 out of 15 games, which is surprising because what you expect is that Thursday Night Football is the one that goes under and Sunday and Mondays go over, but it's actually been the opposite this year.
Fascinating.
All right, let's move on to Sunday. We're going to skip the Saturday games. They're all right, but they're not good enough to cover. Sorry. Browns 9-5 at Texans 8-6 in the Flacco versus Keenum game. Browns make it 99% of the time with a win and 80% with a loss. Texans 85% with a win, 39% with a loss. I didn't grab a lot of offensive stats about these teams because it's completely different quarterbacks than we've seen for most of the year, but I will point out that the Texans are only 29th running the ball, and they are the worst team in the league on short yardage runs, whereas the Browns are 4th against short yardage runs. So that would suggest maybe Don't go for it on 4th and 1.
Yeah, don't send
Throw it
Case
on 4th and 1, I guess. But with Case Keenum,
Yeah, Case Keenum on the tush push. I don't know if that's a good idea. It looks like Dameon Pierce hasn't turned into that guy. They've been using Singletary. Singletary played very well last week, but you take a gander at the Texans injury report.
I think Will Anderson is still out, and C.J. Stroud is obviously out, and I don't know what the situation is with the receivers.
Shaq Mason did not practice on Wednesday. Laremy Tunsil did not practice on Wednesday. Noah Brown was limited. I think he'll probably play. Brevin Jordan, tight end, who's been playing a lot and making some plays, did not practice on Wednesday. John Mechie did not practice on Wednesday. Blake Pratt. It's a very ugly, and of course C.J. Stroud looks like it is going to be. He's out for another week.
Now, I will point out that the Browns defense is only 8th in the NFL since week 10. So remember, the first half of the season, they were historically good defense. They've just been good over the last few weeks. They haven't been historically good, although that includes the game where Myles Garrett was clearly not healthy.
Yes.
Their big weakness is that they are 24th against passes up the middle.
Interesting.
But who the heck knows? I can tell you C.J. Stroud was awesome on passes up the middle.
Yes.
But how much is that scheme, and how much is that Stroud, and how much is that the receivers? And the receivers are injured, and Stroud is injured. So what does that really tell us? Probably not.
It tells us this would be a different game if we at least had C.J. Stroud out there.
The other defensive stat I can tell you is that both of these defenses improve against the pass when they blitz.
Okay.
So both Cleveland and Houston want to do some blitzing, which also makes logical sense considering that they're facing Joe Flacco and Case Keenum. So I think,
What's our under on this?
I didn't write it down what the over-under is on this game. I think the system likes the under. It's like 37.5 or something, and I think the system likes the under.
I don't hate the sound of that with all this chaos going. It's 40. Oh, I'm going under 40.
Let me see what
I got 40. Like up to the second, like I could play it now.
Yeah, it's 40 and 40.5 I have, and the system likes under.
Yeah.
System likes under.
I like under.
The line is Browns -2.5. I mean, first of all, this is a game I would never play. With two backup quarterbacks, is just too much randomness for me. To play this.
I like the Browns. You know, they have an established, template for winning these games with Joe Flacco out there, with what they're doing offensively, with all the things they do defensively against a team this beat up. I think they got all the magic power-ups with Case Keenum they could to get to 16 points last week. And I'm looking right now at the parlay of Browns -2.5 and under 40 at +252.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
That could be fun. +252 on that game.
Yeah. That's a nice value, actually.
Christmas cheer.
Let's go to another 1 p.m. game, which is the Detroit Lions 10-4 versus at the Minnesota Vikings, who are 7-7. The Lions win the division if they win this game. The Vikings make the playoffs 79% of the time with a win and 35% of the time with a loss. I've talked about this a lot, but the Vikings defense is actually better when they do not blitz, even though they blitz more than any other defense in the league. Mm-hmm. However, Goff is better without a blitz by about the same amount that the Vikings defense is better without a blitz. So it really doesn't really matter.
Well, what I don't want to see in like the final drive is Brian Flores doing the things where there's 9 guys at the line and then they all drop back into cover 4 and they're all running in different directions.
There is a lot of that with Flores where guys have to run to their spot. They have to look like they're pass rushing, and then they have to run to their spot. And what if they don't get to their spot in time?
Right.
Goff's got to get the ball out quick to take
advantage
of that.
Right. I think I don't hate the strategy against Jake Browning because you're going to baffle this guy, at least theoretically. But, it's a strategy I think he's using more of because he doesn't have the horses back there. And when you don't have the horses, they might not get back in coverage in time.
The Lions are second in DVOA on first down, while the Vikings are 14th in defense on first downs. So that makes it suggest that the Lions can just get yards on first down and put themselves into good situations. Yeah. Hopefully for them, good second and short situations where they can do play actions and do interesting things and get the ball downfield. And both of these defenses are particularly weak against passes up the middle.
Okay. So
the Vikings are 23rd and the Lions are 28th.
I found interesting. I was looking at your variance stats, the variance stats.
Yeah.
And the Lions are the third most varianced, like the most up and down team in the NFL.
That makes some sense given some of the losses they've had.
It is. And when you look at the losses, it makes sense. And then you look at the injury report in general, and this is a team that has not changed quarterbacks. It has not lost its top edge rusher, has not had offensive line, major injuries, etc. It's shocking. Of course, the Bills are number one. But meanwhile, the Vikings are with 4 different quarterbacks, Justin Jefferson in and out of the lineup. I think they're the second least variant team. It's unbelievable. Like what you see is what you get with the Vikings along the way. And what I anticipate in this is a Lions win, but the Lions can be up and down. And Vikings are going to get 17 points and get some blitzes and a couple big plays. And
Lions defense is 31st against the pass since week 9.
Oh wow, yeah.
They are also 22nd against wide receiver 1s and 30th against wide receiver 2s. So if Mullins can find his guys, and he's got good guys. The Vikings can win this. The question is, how much can Mullen find his guys, right? Like, who is Nick Mullins, right? Because we know you don't want to look at what Nick Mullins did in San Francisco because that's got the San Francisco boost, right? So what does Nick Mullins do in this offense with these guys against this defense? And that's why I think I would favor going Lions -3. The line is Lions -3.
I like Lions -3 too. Mullins was YOLOing it a lot against the Bengals. Yeah, and he was feast or famining it. And that probably makes as much sense as anything else you're going to do with the Vikings at this point. I don't see that working. I see that turning into turnovers, sacks, and just not enough points to compete. I like Lions -3 as well.
All right, let's go to 4 p.m. and we'll do the Cowboys at the Dolphins first.
Mm-hmm.
That is 2 10-4 teams. Now, what's interesting is this does not have as much of an effect on the playoff picture as you might think.
Okay.
Because the Cowboys' chances, for example, of winning the NFC East, the only difference, it goes from 39.5% if they win and 29.5% if they lose. Okay. And the Dolphins' chances of making the Super Bowl are 25% if they win and 18% if they lose.
That's nothing.
So the differences of these games, because it's an out-of-conference game and because these teams are, the Dolphins are probably not going to get the number 1 seed even if they win this game. And the Cowboys are probably not going to win the division even if they win this game. It actually doesn't seem to be that important. That being said, obviously, it's a huge game because both of these teams have this fraud aura around them, right? Miami hasn't beaten a team with a winning record.
Yep.
Dallas has, but then they got crushed by Buffalo and they got crushed by San Francisco. So what's going to happen when they play Miami? And I'll point out the Cowboys are the 3rd best offense in the league by DVOA since week 10. Mm-hmm. And the Dolphins are the 4th best defense since week 10. They finally got the Fangio scheme when Ramsey came back in particular.
Yes.
And the other thing about this game is the Cowboys are now 16th in run defense DVOA and dead last in success rate allowed on runs. And the Dolphins are 2nd in run DVOA and 6th in success rate on runs. So can you see the Dolphins just running all over the Cowboys with Achane and Mostert?
One problem on the Dolphins injury report this week is their offensive line.
Like the whole thing?
Like the whole thing. They asked McDaniel yesterday, like, what's the status of the offensive line? And he literally did this. He literally did the big shrug. Let me try and grab
give Mike McDaniel points for honesty.
Yes. Tron Armstead knee did not practice on Wednesday. Robert Hunt hamstring did not practice. Austin Jackson oblique did not practice. Liam Eichenberg calf limited participation. Okay. We also had some of these might be rest days, but we had Devon, the rookie running back, Raheem Mostert, Xavier Howard, and Tyreek Hill. I think Hill is going to be back.
Hill is supposed to play. To play. They kept him out against the Jets so that he could play in this game.
Right, but that line injury situation is scary because if you get half of those guys back, you're still potentially not doing what you hope to do.
Yeah, and they need to protect Tua so he can throw deep. Dak Prescott and Tua Tagovailoa are the top 2 quarterbacks in the league throwing deep. The difference is in the defense because the Cowboys are 19th against deep passes, but are awesome against short passes. While the Dolphins are terrible against short passes, but 9th against deep passes. And I'm looking for the trend here. Boris Clock wants to know, what is the Dolphins' offensive DVOA since week 10? And I can tell you since week 10, they are 6th.
Nice.
Since week 10. So they were 3rd for weeks 1 to 9 and 6th since week 10. But again, this is another one where if you look at the stats, if they play a team with a winning record, they only average 17 points a game. And against every other team on their schedule, they average 35 points a game. So that's the are they frauds storyline that we need to figure out here. Keeping in mind
also 2 30-point performances against the Jets defense. Now, part of that is the Jets offense flatlining, giving them the ball back to a degree. But there is a little bit of nobody with a winning record, but they face tough opponents.
Yeah, they face tough defenses, right? Yeah. Without Tyreek.
Yes.
Tua is the number 1 quarterback on throwing the ball over the middle, and the Dallas defense is 25th against passes over the middle.
Wow. We're going to see a lot of those secondary, tertiary targets, I think, for the Dolphins.
Braxton freaking Berrios.
Braxton Berrios. Les Walker, too.
The Cowboys' offense drops to 17th in the red zone. But Miami has the worst red zone defense in the league this year. And even since their defense turned things around, they're only average. So all year, they've been much better until they get to the red zone.
Yeah.
So for most of the year, they were good in the first 80 yards and then very, very bad in the red zone. And then for the last few weeks, they've been great for the first 80 yards and then average in the red zone.
That speaks to a team that does a great job taking away deep passes and Ramsey taking away a side of the field and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that works great, but you get a little bit less of advantage in that when it's in tight quarters.
Their coverage of number 1 wide receivers has not gotten better since Ramsey returned because they don't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily put Ramsey on the 1 and just say, go get that guy. Like sometimes they do that. Sometimes he's playing the tight end. Sometimes he's the slot guy. He moves around a lot. So CeeDee Lamb, I think we watch for how much do they put Ramsey on CeeDee Lamb.
They're not. They're going to put Ramsey on a side. Ramsey's size makes him a matchup guy that I don't think you necessarily rush out there to put him on CeeDee Lamb.
The line is Dolphins minus 1.5. And I felt like the matchups really favored the Dolphins until you started talking to me about the injuries. And Useful Title wants to know if there's anything to the Cowboys playing worse outdoors or on grass. And yeah, I mean, the Cowboys have crazy home road splits. And I talk a lot about the fact that historically home road splits always regress towards the mean for every team. It's basically in the long run, every team has the same home field advantage.
Right.
But Prescott does have a history of being better at home than on the road. I don't know if that's grass or if that's weather, because obviously it's Miami. The weather should be good.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know which pick I would do because the offensive line injuries now make me go, about the Dolphins. Yeah. I think I'm still picking the Dolphins, but I think I would not bet on this until I knew who was active on Sunday.
This is a good one. I would go Cowboys, but I would not touch it until I pick up that injury report and say, or I get the active report from, Jay Glazer, like the rest of us for the Cowboys and the Dolphins and see who's really out there.
Let's talk about another 4 p.m. game, and this is the 8-6 Jaguars at the 7-7 Buccaneers.
Okay.
Jaguars make the playoffs 91% of the time with a win and 57% with a loss. Buccaneers 90% with a win, 67% with a loss. A surprisingly amount of importance given that it's a cross conference game. We do not know if Trevor Lawrence is playing.
Okay.
And we know that the Buccaneers are 18th in DVOA, but 13th in weighted DVOA. In pretty much every category, the Buccaneers are a little bit below average for the season and a little bit above average if you weight it towards recent games. And everything is they're 18th in offense and 18th in defense and 15th in special teams. And everything is very NFC Southy, man. It's all just kind of, somebody's got to be in the middle.
18th number one in our heart.
Meh team where everything is meh for the Tampa Bay, except on the third down offense. Their offense is 22nd on first down, 26th on second down, and second on third down. They have been living on third down all year, and I just do not know if that is sustainable.
It is a lot of having those good targets, having those good weapons, I think, is doing it. And that creates a good situation. Overall, they're looking like, I guess I didn't anticipate, like, this is still this veteran team. Like 2 years ago, this team was in the playoffs. 3 years ago, it was in the Super Bowl. It's
right.
Not
defensively in particular, it's a lot of the same veterans. Wide receiver wise, right? It's a lot of the same veteran, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
A lot of the same guys. So in the NFC South, they're kings because they go out there with professionalism and adequacy.
The Jaguars are bad against blitzes this year. They have a 29% DVOA passing without a blitz. They have minus 14% with a blitz, and the Buccaneers love to blitz.
Yeah.
And especially if it's not Trevor Lawrence back there. I don't even remember right now who is the Jaguars' backup quarterback. What is it? Beathard? It's CJ Beathard. Yeah.
It's Beathard. Yeah.
They will blitz the living hell out of that guy.
Right. And they've had injuries on the offensive line. They have problems at both tackles.
Right. Walker Little, Cam Robinson's been out. Walker Little has played both left tackle and left guard. And then I think Walker Little got hurt, and I don't know how he's doing right now.
Right. And we're kind of seeing this team just sort of make all these fundamental errors one after the other. That's what we saw from them on Sunday night. That's what we saw from them a couple weeks ago. It's on paper, I looked at this a month ago and say, well, there's one of the wins for the Jaguars. And now we come into where we're at now, and it's hard to say, well, that's just a win for the Jaguars.
The line is Buccaneers -1.
I'm not taking the Buccaneers as a favorite, even with one. Oh, yeah. Gosh.
This is I'm not touching because I just don't know if Lawrence is playing.
Well, that's it. And if Lawrence is out there, I'm taking the Jaguars. They have to go with the priors at some level.
If Lawrence is not out there, I would go with Buccaneers -1. But if Lawrence is not out there, that line will move immediately.
I feel like that's a Lawrence's line.
I think Buccaneers -1 is a we don't know line. I feel like if Lawrence was definitely out, it would be like Bucks -3. And if Lawrence was definitely in, it would be Jaguars favorite.
-2, yeah.
This isn't I think this is a we don't know line.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's get to the game of the week, which again does not actually matter that much.
Told you 2 weeks ago. This game is so important, it won't matter at all.
Because it's the cross conference. It's the DVOA Bowl. Based on the DVOA of the teams, this is basically the second best regular season game of the last 40 years.
Last how many years?
40 years of the 40. DVOA era. This is the second best regular season game of the DVOA era, trailing only the 2007 Colts and Patriots undefeated teams in 2007 in Week 9, which you and I believe, watched at Chickies and Pete's.
Oh my God, we did. It was before an Eagles-Cowboys game.
It was the week that Adrian Peterson set the all-time rushing record at 1 p.m., and then the Colts and Patriots played at 4, and then we went to Eagles-Cowboys at the link.
At night. Oh my gosh, I remember that. That was wild.
That was the best regular season game of the last 40 years. This is the second best one. But Ravens make the Super Bowl, and our percentages are so high for these teams. 51% of the time with a win and 45% with a loss.
Okay.
They are the 1 seed, 84% with a win and 61% with a loss.
Okay. Now let me guess. The Niners make it 99.6% of the time with a win, but 99.45% of the time with a loss.
74% with a win, 72% with a loss.
Okay.
And they are the 1 seed 99% of the time with a win and 87% of the time with a loss. Now, the big thing about this for me is the Ravens running game has been historically awesome, but now there's no Keaton Mitchell. And obviously it's not Keaton Mitchell that makes the running game go. It's Lamar Jackson that makes the running game go. Yes. But Keaton Mitchell was the best of their running back. They are first in DVOA running and only 13th passing. Mm-hmm. The 49ers are 4th against the pass and 18th against the run. However, the 49ers run defense has improved in the second half of the season. In fact, the Ravens defense has only been 11th since week 10. The 49ers defense has been first since week 10.
God. The 49ers have been first since the guys got healthy at the bye.
Everything. Right. I mean, because I'm like, the 49ers DVOA is the third best of any team ever tracked through 14 games.
Right.
What happens then if you take out the 3 games without Williams If you take out the 3 games without Williams, McCaffrey, and Samuel, it's the best. They're better. If you take out those 3 games, they are better than the 2007 Patriots.
And Keaton Mitchell is a loss. When you look at his burst and speed, his acceleration versus the other running backs they have, you can see the value he's adding in that offense consistently. And so having him out of there, the rest of the guys, Gus Edwards, these other guys, they're plotters. And this was the one guy who could turn 5 yards into 15 when he gets up the sideline.
Lamar Jackson is much better without a blitz this year, but I pointed out that seems to have gone back and forth the last couple of years, so I don't know what's for real there. The Ravens defense allows 0.8 fewer yards per play with 23% better DVOA if they are in nickel instead of base. But the 49ers offense is designed to make you play base.
Yep.
Because they're going to come out there with Juszczyk, or they're going to have Ross Dwelly or something along with Kittle, and they're designed to make you play base. So that's not good for the Ravens. The Ravens are also only 24th in DVOA against running back as receivers. And Lamar Jackson throws up the middle 25% of the time, which is very high.
Okay.
And the 49ers are the number 1 defense on passes up the middle.
Oh, gosh.
So I feel like I'm like reciting all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it all seems to favor the 49ers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been driving the Ravens bandwagon,
Mm-hmm.
but all the matchup stuff seems to favor the 49ers.
Everything favors the 49ers. I don't know Ronnie Stanley's status at this point.
But here's the thing. I was on Baltimore radio yesterday and they were talking about how they've been moving Stanley in and out of the lineup.
Yes.
Like they've been resting him for Patrick McCarthy. Like, what is up with that? So his performance this year, he has not been Ronnie Stanley this year. He's been off a bit.
He's Jason Peters-ing. Jason Peters at the end of his career started being in and out, and I think you see a little bit about Ronnie Stanley. You don't want to goof around against this particular team, though, and whenever I load the 49ers injury report up these days, my screen goes blank, and I'm like, oh, was that an error? Was that an error?
Ridiculously healthy.
It's like, no, there ain't no injuries.
I mean, despite the fact that I drive the Ravens bandwagon, I feel like I'm going to be disappointed if the 49ers don't win at all. I don't It feels good if your team beats the juggernaut, but part of me kind of wants the juggernaut to be the juggernaut. Like, I don't want to have another year like 2010 or 2019 where this team is super hot going into the playoffs. 2010, it was the Patriots. 2019, it was the Ravens. And then they lose in their first playoff game, and you're like, what happened to all this greatness? Like, where did that go?
It's fine if the guys are healthy. It's fine if the guys I don't want to be like, oh, Purdy got hurt again and Darnold got hurt too.
Well, that I really don't want to have happen. Like, I want the 49ers. If the 49ers are going to get beat, I want them to get beat healthy.
Right. And if that happens, well, the Rams did it to them, or the Buccaneers did it to them, or the Eagles did it to them. There's probably at least a storyline behind that would be interesting.
One thing that does favor the Ravens is that both of these teams are 2 of the 4 teams in the NFL with an over 80% conversion rate on short yardage runs.
Wow.
But the 49ers defense is 29th against short yardage runs. Well, this is 3rd and 4th, right? The problem with the Ravens is they tend to F up 4th down.
Yeah.
But third down, they're good at. The 49ers defense is not good against short yardage runs. So that's one weakness. That's one. But still,
I'm just picturing like the Cardinals in the 4th quarter down by 3 scores, converting some 3rd and 1s, and that being the number.
I can't give you the context.
Right. I mean, I'm sure it's relatively. I'm sure it's a weakness.
The line is 49ers -5. The system likes the Ravens because we like the Ravens better than the market.
Okay.
But when you look at the matchups, I just have to go with the 49ers. If I'm going to bet this game, I'm going to bet the 49ers.
I feel like I'd want 7.5 to feel comfortable. Any opponent in the world, even the Ravens, against to even do cover.
And it doesn't mean the Ravens. What I'm not expecting, okay, and it may happen, but what I'm not expecting is an ass kicking.
No. Okay.
I'm expecting a closer game, but like a 7 or 10 point closer game. And Super Glucose points out that Hargrave and Armstead, the 49ers do have a few.
Okay, they do have some injuries this year. I have not. All right.
Defensive tackle injuries. So
right. But both have been on the injury report lately, though, and then played. So I'm not exactly certain of that. But I got to admit, I'm not up to the injury report.
So we both would go 49ers here.
We're going 49ers.
And Andrew Daly, by the way, going back to Jacksonville and Tampa Bay, the line was Jacksonville -2.5 before Lawrence concussion. So that 3.5 points sounds about right for Lawrence. So Buccaneers -1 is the Lawrence out. They're expecting
Lawrence out. With Lawrence out, I mean, my system says go with the backup. I don't feel my system with this Jacksonville Jaguars team.
No, I would go Buccaneers. I'm not a CJ Beathard believer.
It's CJ Beathard fan club.
Useful title says his head says 49ers and his heart says Ravens.
Bet with your head, pick your amount with your heart. Wait, no, that's backwards. Do it the other way. Bet with your heart, pick your amount with your head.
Yeah. All right, so that does it for today's show, everybody. Thank you so much for everybody who made comments and asked questions and who's been watching us live. Thank you for everybody who's been listening as a podcast after the fact. Please, again, we'll remind you to tell your friends all about the Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast from FTN Network. We will be back. We are not coming back on Monday, taking Christmas off. We will be back Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern to preview Week 17 in the NFL. So until then, everybody have a great Week 16. For Mike Tanier, I'm Aaron Schatz. So long, everybody.